Christianity between pure spirituality and worldly desire Part 1. Undoubtedly, the true religion of God every time and everywhere from the times of Adam to Muhammad inspires deep spirituality and self-control rather than desire suppression. Man is an intermediate being that is midway between inanimate objects and angels. While a human has earthly desires, one also has celestial faculties. Man may not, and even cannot, be purely earthly or purely celestial. Otherwise, man would have become an inanimate object or an angel. That is why one should steer a middle course between the earthly soil and the celestial light so that one can convey the message for which man was created. Therefore, the successive heavenly messages of the true religion of God every time and everywhere took into consideration man's physical and spiritual dimensions so that man can feel utmost spirituality while having adequate satisfaction of one's worldly desires, paving the way for spiritual development. Man is a body and a soul. Each has its own requirements and needs. Neither of them can survive without the other. The negligence of the needs of one of them adversely affects the other and ultimately leads to man's unhappiness. It is safe to say that the indulgence or negligence of the needs of any of man's two components to the detriment of the other per se serves as evidence of the falsehood of the faith, law and way of life. While God does not allow total immersion in the earthly soil through the indulgence of the bodily desire, he does not command such spiritual development which negatively affects body. In the Quran, we read, "Seek, through that which Allah has given you, the home of the hereafter, and, yet, do not forget your share of the world." Al-Qasas 28:77. Thus, false is such a religion or faith which permits indulgence or negligence of any of man's two components, that is body and soul, to the detriment of the other, unfortunately. In the contemporary Christianity, the clergymen often mouth off about pure spirituality coupled with the total suppression of man's worldly desire or the so-called monasticism. About that, in the Quran, we read, "Then we sent following their footsteps our messengers and followed them with Jesus, the son of Mary, and gave him the gospel. And we placed in the hearts of those who followed him compassion and mercy and monasticism, which they innovated. We did not prescribe it for them except that they did so, seeking the approval of Allah. But they did not observe it with due observance. So we gave the ones who believed among them their reward, but many of them are defiantly disobedient." Al-Hadid 57:27. It is worth noting, according to the above verse, that the stated monasticism goes against man's very nature. God neither wants nor commands it. What is more, most people cannot put it into practice, for it contradicts the purpose of man's creation, that is, obedience through both earthly and spiritual proportions. As well as spiritual development coupled with reasonable gratification, the most conclusive evidence of the falsehood of monasticism. Pure spirituality and desire suppression promoted by the contemporary Christianity is its most prominent followers' failure to adhere to the same from the dawn of Christianity and throughout. History. Let's review the history of the early Christianity to spotlight a few instances of the inapplicability of pure spirituality or even desire suppression propagated by the contemporary Christianity. Mary's giving birth to Jesus while betrothed to Joseph. First of all, where is the pure spirituality in the contemporary Christianity, though God is portrayed as begetting a son by a woman betrothed to someone else? In the New Testament, we read, "Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together she was found to be with child by the power of the Holy Spirit." Matthew 1:18. If looking at or coveting the woman of someone else is forbidden in the Bible, how come God begets a son by the woman of someone else? In the Old Testament, we read, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's." Exodus 20:17, Deuteronomy 5:21. The New Testament quotes Jesus as saying, "You have heard that it was said, you must not commit adultery. But I tell you that if a man looks at a woman and wants to sin sexually with her, he has already committed that sin with her in his mind. If your right eye makes you sin, take it out and throw it away. It is better to lose one part of your body than to have your whole body thrown into hell." Matthew 5:27-29. If impregnation out of wedlock is deemed adultery and has a capital punishment, how come God commits that offense? About the adultery punishment in the Bible, we read, If a man has sexual relations with his neighbor's wife, both the man and the woman are guilty of adultery and must be put to death. Leviticus 20 verse 10. Immodesty even at churches. Where is the pure spirituality in the contemporary Christianity though immodesty is shown at churches? For example, while immodesty in dress is prohibited both in the Bible and the early Pope's decrees, immodesty in dress is widely shown at churches. In the Bible, we read, "Every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishes her head, since that is one and the same as having her head shaved." For if a woman doesn't cover her head, she should have her hair cut off. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, let her head be covered. 1 Corinthians 11 verses 5 to 6. We also read, "Judge for yourselves, is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered?" 1 Corinthians 11 verse 13. We further read, also, the women are to dress themselves in modest clothing, with decency and good sense, not with elaborate hairstyles, gold, pearls, or expensive apparel. 1 Timothy 2 verse 9. According to Liber Pontificalis, Pope Linus, the second pope of the Catholic Church from 67 AD to 76 AD, issued a decree that women should cover their heads in church. Also, while looking at and touching women is prohibited in the Bible, looking at and touching women is commonplace at churches either for blessing, prayer, shake hands, baptism or confirmation or other purposes. The New Testament quotes Jesus as prohibiting looking at women. We read, "You have heard that it was said, you must not commit adultery. But I tell you that if a man looks at a woman and wants to sin sexually with her, he has already committed that sin with her in his mind. If your right eye makes you sin, take it out and throw it away. It is better to lose one part of your body than to have your whole body thrown into hell." Matthew 5 verses 27 to 29. In his epistles, Paul disapproved touching women. In the Bible, we read, "Now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman." 1 Corinthians 7 verse 1. Pope's marriages. Though the Bible commands neither monasticism nor celibacy either in the Old Testament or in the New Testament, the Council of Nicea imposed monasticism and celibacy on deacons and bishops. It is ironic that this is something not commanded by Jesus in the four synoptic Gospels or even Paul in his epistles. The latter only approved that without obligation or imposition. While monasticism and celibacy are seen as manifestations of pure spirituality in the modern Christianity, we observe that this is something which even the early popes themselves could not abide by. Pope Demetrius I of Alexandria. Pope Demetrius I, the 12th Pope of Alexandria and Amp, Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, was married for 47 years both before and even after he had been chosen a patriarch. Still, Christians claim that he lived with his wife as a brother and a sister. But how did he get married in the first place? Were pure spirituality and celibacy better than this marriage? For more information, please visit copticchurch.net. Pope Mina II of Alexandria. Pope Mina II, the 61st Pope of Alexandria and Amp, Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, was married. He concealed his marriage and entered the monastery, but he was exposed after he had become the Pope. For more information, please visit. In Arabic. Pope Benedict IX. Pope Benedict IX was the Pope of the Catholic Church on 3 occasions between October 1032 and July 1048. Wishing to marry, Benedict IX sold papacy to Gregory VI, who became the next pope on the 1st of May 1045. Permission of remarriage and amp, infanticide. Despite the contemporary Christianity's prohibition of remarriage, bishops' marriage and even infanticide, Tertullian, De Exhort. Castitatis, 7, speaks with reprobation of bishops who had been married more than once. Hippolytus charges Pope Callistus I, the Bishop of Rome from 218 to 223, with being the first to allow this, against St. Paul's rule. But in the East marriages before baptism were not counted, and in any case the law is one from which the Pope can dispense if necessity arise. Again, Callistus allowed the lower clergy to marry, and permitted noble ladies to marry low persons and slaves, which by the Roman law was forbidden. He had thus given occasion for infanticide. Here again Callistus was rightly insisting on the distinction between the ecclesiastical law of marriage and the civil law, which later ages have always taught. For more information, please visit Catholic Encyclopedia. Pope's desire for revenge, killing, mutilation and devastation. Pope Stephen VI. Pope Stephen VI was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 896 to 897. Stephen VI is chiefly remembered in connection with his conduct towards the remains of Pope Formosus, his penultimate predecessor. The rotting corpse of Formosus was exhumed and put on trial before a synod of the Roman clergy in the so-called Cadaver Synod, or Synodus Horrenda, in January 897. With the corpse propped up on a throne, a deacon was appointed to answer for the deceased pontiff. The corpse was found guilty, stripped of its sacred vestments, deprived of 3 fingers of its right hand, the blessing fingers, clad in the garb of a layman, and quickly buried. It was then re-exhumed and thrown in the Tiber. Cadaver Synod. Pope Sergius III. Pope Sergius III was the Pope of the Catholic Church from January 904 to 911. He actively participated in the farcical Cadaver Synod that condemned the pontificate of Formosus. Sergius III reputedly ordered the murder of his 2 immediate predecessors, Leo V and Christopher. According to the Proformosan Eugenius Vulgarius, Sergius ordered both men to be strangled in prison sometime in early 904. For more information, please download the following article, The Cadaver Synod, Strangest Trial in History. Pope John XII. Pope John XII was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 955 to 964. According to Liutprand of Cremona, John XII blinded his confessor Benedict, and thereafter Benedict had died, killed John, cardinal subdeacon, after castrating him. Set fires, girded on a sword, and put on a helmet and cuirass. For more information, please visit Catholic Encyclopedia. Pope Gregory IX. Pope Gregory IX was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 1227 to 1241. He is known for issuing the decretals and instituting the Papal Inquisition, a mechanism that severely punished people accused of heresy. Gregory IX began his pontificate by suspending the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II for dilatoriness in carrying out the promised Sixth Crusade. The suspension was followed by excommunication and threats of deposition, as deeper rifts appeared. Frederick II went to the Holy Land and in fact managed to take possession of Jerusalem. In June 1229, Frederick II returned from the Holy Land, routed the papal army which Gregory IX had sent to invade Sicily, and made new overtures of peace to the Pope. A new outbreak of hostilities led to a fresh excommunication of the emperor in 1239 and to a prolonged war. Gregory denounced Frederick II as a heretic and summoned a council at Rome to give point to his anathema. Frederick responded by trying to capture or sink as many ships carrying prelates to the synod as he could. Eberhard II von Truxes, Prince Archbishop of Salzburg, in 1241 at the Council of Regensburg, declared that Gregory IX was that man of perdition, whom they call Antichrist. Who in his extravagant boasting, says, I am God, I cannot err. He argued that the Pope was the little horn of Daniel 7 verse 8. The struggle was only terminated by the death of Gregory IX on the 22nd of August 1241. He died before events could reach their climax. It was his successor Pope Innocent IV who declared a crusade in 1245 that would finish the Hohenstaufen threat. Pope Paul IV. Pope Paul IV was the Pope of the Catholic Church and the ruler of the Papal States from 1555 to 1559. The strengthening of the Inquisition continued under Paul IV, and few could consider themselves safe by virtue of position in his drive to reform the Church. Even cardinals he disliked could be imprisoned. Therefore, crowds of people gathered at the Piazza del Campidoglio and began rioting even before Paul IV died. His statue, erected before the Campidoglio just months before, had a yellow hat placed on it, similar to the yellow hat Paul IV had forced Jews to wear in public. After a mock trial, the statue was decapitated. It was then thrown into the Tiber. The crowd broke into the 3 city jails and freed more than 400 prisoners, then broke into the offices of the Inquisition at the Palazzo del Inquisizione near to the Church of San Rocco. They murdered the Inquisitor, Tommaso Scotti, and freed 72 prisoners. The people ransacked the palace, and then set it afire, destroying the Inquisition's records. That same day, or the next day, records are unclear, the crowd attacked the Church of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. The intercession of some local nobility dissuaded them from burning it and killing all those within. On the 3rd day of rioting, the crowd removed the Carafa family coat of arms from all churches, monuments, and other buildings in the city. Paul IV's nephew, Cardinal Nephew Carlo Carafa, arrived in Rome late on August 19. Worried that the rioters might break in and desecrate the Pope's corpse. At 10 p.m. Cardinal Carafa had Pope Paul IV buried without ceremony next to the Cappella del Volto Santo, Chapel of the Holy Face, in St. Peter's. Pope's adultery, incest and homosexuality. Pope Sergius III. Pope Sergius III was the Pope of the Catholic Church from January 904 to 911. According to chronicler Liutprand of Cremona, Pope Sergius III had mistress, namely Marozia, the mother of Pope John XI and the daughter of Theodora, whom Liutprand characterized as a shameless whore, who exercised power on the Roman citizenry like a man. Pope John XII. Pope John XII was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 955 to 964. His pontificate became infamous for the alleged depravity and worldliness with which he conducted it. He was depicted as a coarse, immoral man in the writings which remain about his papacy, whose life was such that the Lateran Palace was spoken of as a brothel. And the moral corruption in Rome became the subject of general disgrace. His lifestyle suited the secular prince he was. According to John, Bishop of Narni, and John, a cardinal deacon, John XII fornicated with the widow of Rainier, with step Hannah his father's concubine, with the widow Anna, and with his own niece. And he made the sacred palace into a whorehouse. Pope Benedict IX. Pope Benedict IX was the Pope of the Catholic Church on 3 occasions between October 1032 and July 1048. Historian Ferdinand Gregorovius wrote that in Benedict, it seemed as if a demon from hell, in the disguise of a priest, occupied the chair of Peter and profaned the sacred mysteries of religion by his insolent courses. The Catholic Encyclopedia calls him a disgrace to the chair of Peter. He was the first pope rumored to have been primarily homosexual. Pope Victor III, in his third book of Dialogues, referred to his rapes, murders, and other unspeakable acts of violence and sodomy. His life as a pope was so vile, so foul, so execrable, that I shudder to think of it. Bishop Benno of Piacenza accused Benedict of many vile adulteries and murders. His reputed dissolute activities provoked a revolt on the part of the Romans. Benedict was driven out of Rome. In September 1044, opposition to Benedict IX's sodomitic lifestyle forced him out of the city. For more information, please download Benedict IX and Gregory VI. Pope Boniface VIII. Pope Boniface VIII was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 1294 to 1303. According to Guillaume de Nogaret, William of Nogaret, Boniface VIII was sodomite. For more information, please visit the Free Dictionary, Wikipedia. Pope Alexander VI. Pope Alexander VI was the Pope of the Catholic Church from August 1492 to August 1503. He acknowledged fathering several children by his mistresses. Therefore his Italianized Valentian surname, Borgia, became a byword for libertinism and nepotism, which are traditionally considered as characterizing his pontificate. Of Alexander's many mistresses, the one for whom passion lasted longest was Venosa, Giovanna dei Catanii, born in 1442, and wife of 3 successive husbands. The connection began in 1470, and she had 4 children whom he openly acknowledged as his own. Cesare, born 1475, Giovanni, afterwards Duke of Gandia, commonly known as Juan, born 1476, Lucrezia, born 1480, and Geoffrey, Goffredo in Italian, born 1481 or 1482. For a period of time, before legitimizing his children after becoming pope, Rodrigo pretended that his 4 children with Venosa were his niece and nephews and that they were fathered by Venosa's husbands. Before his elevation to the papacy, Cardinal Borgia's passion for Venosa somewhat diminished, and she subsequently led a very retired life. Her place in his affections was filled, according to some, by the beautiful Giulia Farnese, Giulia la Bella, wife of an Orsini. However, he still very dearly loved Venosa, and his love for his children by Venosa remained as strong as ever and proved, indeed, the determining factor of his whole career. He lavished vast sums on them and lauded them with every honor. Venosa lived in the palace of a late cardinal, or in a large, palatial villa. The children lived between their mother's home and the papal palace itself. For other children, Girolamo, Isabella, Pedro Luis, and Bernardo were of uncertain maternal parentage. His daughter Isabella was the great-great-grandmother of Pope Innocent X. A daughter, Laura, was born to his mistress, Giulia Farnese. Paternity was officially attributed to Orsino Orsini, Farnese's husband. For more information, please review The Bad Popes. Pope Leo X. Pope Leo X was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 1513 to 1521. Leo's most recent biographer, Carlo Falconi, claims Leo hid a private life of moral irregularity behind a mask of urbanity. Suggestions of homosexual attraction appear in works by two contemporary historians, Francesco Guicciardini and Paolo Giovio. Zimmerman notes Giovio's disapproval of the Pope's familiar banter with his chamberlains, handsome young men from noble families, and the advantage he was said to take of them. Martin Luther, who had spent time in Rome, said that Leo had vetoed a measure that cardinals should restrict the number of boys they kept for their pleasure. Otherwise it would have been spread throughout the world how openly and shamelessly the Pope and the cardinals in Rome practiced sodomy, encouraging Germans not to spend time fighting fellow countrymen in defense of the papacy. Pope Clement VII. Pope Clement VII was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 1523 to 1534. He was born as an illegitimate child, for his father Giuliano de' Medici was assassinated 1 month before his birth. His father had not married his mother, Fioretta Guerini, who was just betrothed to him. Pope Gregory XIII. Pope Gregory XIII was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 1572 to 1585. He had an illegitimate son, Giacomo Boncompagni, after an affair with Maddalena Fulcini. Pope Gregory XIII. Pope Gregory XIII was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 1572 to 1585. He had an illegitimate son, Giacomo Boncompagni, after an affair with Maddalena Fulcini. He appointed his illegitimate son Giacomo, born to his mistress at Bologna before his papacy, Castellan of Sant'Angelo and Gonfalonier of the church. Venice, anxious to please, enrolled him among its nobles. Philip II of Spain appointed him general in his army. Gregory also helped his son to become a powerful feudatory through the acquisition of the Duchy of Sora, on the border between the Papal States and the Kingdom of Naples. For more information, please download History of the Christian Church. Pope Benedict XVI. Pope Benedict XVI was the Pope of the Catholic Church from 2005 to 2013. From his pontificate on, sexual abuse and homosexual cases involving priests in the Catholic Church have become commonplace, so much so that Pope Benedict XVI could not prevent such practices. What is more, he is purportedly resigned owing to such shameful behaviors which have become rife in the Catholic Church. During his visit to the United States, the Pope also met privately with victims of sexual abuse by priests. In July 2008, the Pope traveled to Australia to attend World Youth Day 2008 in Sydney. On the 19th of July, in St. Mary's Cathedral, he made an apology for child sex abuse perpetrated by the clergy in Australia. During his visit to Malta, the Pope was moved to tears while expressing his shame at cases of abuse on the island during a 20-minute meeting with victims. In March 2010, the Pope sent a pastoral letter to the Catholic Church in Ireland addressing cases of sexual abuse by Catholic priests to minors, expressing sorrow and promising changes in the way accusations of abuse are dealt with. One of the cases Ratzinger pursued involved Father Maciel Maciel de Gallardo, a Mexican priest and founder of the Legion of Christ, who had been accused repeatedly of sexual abuse. Biographer Andrea Tornielli suggested that Cardinal Ratzinger had wanted to take action against Maciel Maciel de Gallardo, but that John Paul II and other high-ranking officials, including several cardinals and notably the Pope's influential secretary Stanislaw Dziwisz, prevented him from doing so. According to Jason Berry, Angelo Sodano pressured Cardinal Ratzinger, who was operating on the assumption that the charges were not justified, to halt the proceedings against Maciel in 1999, when Maciel was honored by the Pope in 2004. New accusers came forward and Cardinal Ratzinger took it on himself to authorize an investigation of Maciel. After Ratzinger became Pope, he began proceedings against Maciel and the Legion of Christ. That forced Maciel out of active service in the Church. On the 1st of May 2010, the Vatican issued a statement denouncing Maciel's very serious and objectively immoral acts, which were confirmed by incontrovertible testimonies, and represent true crimes and manifest a life without scruples or authentic religious sentiment. Pope Benedict also said he would appoint a special commission to examine the legionaries' constitution and open an investigation into its lay affiliate Regnum Christi. Cardinal Christoph Schonborn explained that Ratzinger made entirely clear efforts not to cover things up but to tackle and investigate them. This was not always met with approval in the Vatican. According to Schonborn, Cardinal Ratzinger had pressed John Paul II to investigate Hans Hermann Grohe, an Austrian cardinal and friend of John Paul accused of sexual abuse, resulting in Grohe's resignation. For more information, please read Pope Obstructed Sex Abuse Inquiry.